My name's Laura Detre. I'm running for school board in Westchester Area School District, Region 3.
School boards are the bedrock of our communities. They affect our children, our taxes, our neighborhoods, and our futures. Yet, when election time comes around, there's often very little coverage about the candidates or the office itself. Therefore, Indivisible and Chester County Marching Forward would like to help by introducing you to some of the candidates running for school board this year. Everyone has their story. So Laura, why don't you begin by telling us what is inspiring you to run for school board?
I think the biggest factor in my decision to run for school board is I felt like this was an area where I have some knowledge and some expertise and really could help to make our school district a better place for our entire community, for our students, for our staff, and for taxpayers at large. I have a background in education, I have kids in the school district, and I would really like to, as a board member, just be able to say that I helped to make the Westchester area schools a little bit better for my presence.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Everyone needs a helping hand, and schools definitely need helping hands from everyone. It's definitely all hands on deck when it comes to schooling for our children, so I appreciate that. I also appreciate the fact that you want to help students and staff, and keeping in mind that taxpayers. I think that's very important. So keeping that in mind, can you imagine that you're on the school board? Can you tell me what your top 3 priorities would be?
So I think right now, anyone who's on this Westchester School Board, regardless of party affiliation or how long they've been there, their number one priority has to be the upcoming comprehensive plan that's going to be redone over the next year. This is the guiding document that says who we are as a district and what we want to accomplish. And it's important that we articulate within this document our values. How do we want to approach education? Do we want education to be an inclusive process? Do we want to specifically name ways in which we can make education more inclusive? What is the role of both instructors and administrators in ensuring that all students get the resources that they need? This is the document that will guide all other decision making over the next few years while it's in place. So being a part of that discussion would be my first and foremost priority.
I will say that you seem like you're already on the school board. You know exactly what's going on, so you're already involved. And so that really took me by surprise, and I really appreciate that, because you're right, the comprehensive plan is our guiding document, and getting that right is so important.
There are other projects that I'm interested in being involved in, but they all on some level tie into that comprehensive plan. For example, I think it's time for Westchester to reevaluate our dress code. We don't have the worst dress code in the United States, but we don't have a progressive dress code either. And I think there's some ways we can change language within that dress code to be more accommodating of all of our students. And we can prioritize keeping students in classes, in instruction all the time, even when there may be a minor dress code violation. That, honestly, in some respects, does fall within the comprehensive plan. If we say that our priority is always keeping students in the classroom and not pulling them out of the classroom for disciplinary issues unless we absolutely have to, then that includes dress code issues, too.
Oh, my goodness. So, I'm so unprepared. Dress code. And it is the little itty bitty things that go on in the school that sometimes fall by the wayside, and that the public, and the general public, I should say, doesn't really know. And I'm not sure if you know or not, but I am a teacher. So you're hitting on some serious conversations that I'm having with my students, with some of the other staff members. So you really are, you've got your ears to the ground, as they say.
Now,
So
it may not seem like a big deal at first to say, oh, we're going to take 5 minutes and that student's going to go to their locker and get a hoodie. But if it's happening every couple weeks, that's a lot of missed instruction. If it's happening in disproportionately to a specific group of students, say it's happening more to girls than it is to boys in the class, that's also an equity issue. And all of that falls within the larger discussions in our district about who we are, what we value, and what our schools are there to accomplish.
So I will say that you have opened up my eyes to all the little things that are going on, and it's going to take someone that's got a lot of strengths. So can you tell us what you feel your three biggest strengths are that will help you accomplish some of these goals?
So I think that my three biggest strengths are that I do have a background as an educator. Now, I've never taught K through 12, but I have taught history as an adjunct professor for almost 20 years. And so I see a lot of students who are recent high school graduates, and I see what they're good at and what they struggle with. And I have a lot of ideas about how we could help them, particularly to come out of high school with better research and writing skills. I see some of that also as a parent that I've gone through. At this point, my daughter's in 11th grade and my son is in 7th grade. I've gone through their education, seeing what has worked exceptionally well. My kids have been very lucky to have some very supportive teachers and staff members who have helped them to get the services that they need. But I also see where they struggle and where maybe we need to put a greater emphasis on teaching executive functioning skills, things like that. And then the third thing that I'd say that I bring that not every candidate has is a skill at listening to people, and not just listening to the loudest voices in the room. Because recently we've, as anybody who's watched a school board meeting can tell you, we've had some very, very angry, loud voices in our community, and they deserve to be heard. They absolutely do, and we should take everything that is said at our board meetings as seriously as we can and listen and ensure that we're doing right by all of our students. But sometimes we also need to take a step back and say, what's going on with the families who aren't showing up at board meetings and shouting? What's going on with families who maybe don't have the language skills to come and make a comment at a board meeting? Or who are working 3 jobs and there's just no chance that they're going to be able to spend their Monday night at a 2 or 3 hour long board meeting? Or who fear the repercussions of speaking up to people in authority and don't feel positioned to come in and tell a principal or a teacher or a district administrator how their children are struggling. So we do need people on our board and in our school district in general who are good at hearing those voices even when they're not loud.
There's a lot to unpack there. But I think my favorite is, or at least I will say from the mom point of view, is that my children have always told me that their history teachers are their favorite. So when you said that, that's what really stuck out in my head, is that I think that a lot of students feel that way, and that you would be very relatable to the students. Also, the listening. Listening is very important. And if you can hear all the loud voices and get over the yelling and the screaming and connect with them, I think that would be super important. But one thing that definitely stood out is that you're listening for the quiet voices, right? Like, you want everyone's voice to be heard. And because of that, I really get a sense that you would reach out to the community to make sure that all people and all their voices are heard. So I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, I feel like as an instructor, that's a sort of central part of what we do, and it's part of what K through 12 instructors do. It's part of what effective college instructors do. we don't always listen to the same voices. We sometimes notice that person in the back of the classroom who's not really saying anything, but they're making eye contact with you. They're always present, and you wonder what's going on with them. How can I get through to them and make sure that they're having a good experience, as well as the kids who are always on top of every question.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the first couple questions I asked you were really about laying the foundation so that you can have a super strong and effective first term. But can you tell me about one or two of the top priorities in your district right now, and how you will make decisions that will ensure that all voices are heard?
So I think that definitely in the Westchester Area School District, and this is true pretty generally throughout Chester County, one of the biggest challenges that we're facing is growth. That the districts are growing, people are moving into the districts, and that this is putting a lot of pressures on our schools. Some of that is not within the school district's control. We don't set policies on where housing can be built and what kind of housing, what sort of density we're talking about. But I do think it is important for everyone in the school district, in particular school board members, to try to partner with the local community members who do have some influence over those decisions to make sure that schools remain part of those discussions, that as townships approve new housing and change zoning rules, that they take into account the impact on schools, and that we proactively as a school sort of budget for that growth, which at this point we can't anticipate it stopping. There's no reason to think that, in the next 4 years, everybody will be done building houses in Chester County and we'll hit a stable point. There's no reason to think that. So we need to proactively think, what does this growth mean for us? Do we need to build new schools? Do we need to improve the schools we have? Do we need to find other more creative ways to deal with a growing population that needs and deserves and is legally entitled to services, even if our budget hasn't gone up to the extent that we would hope to cover those services? Another long-term goal that I would have as a school director is to think about trying to teach foreign language at an earlier level. Right now we start foreign language instruction in Westchester at 7th grade at the earliest, 8th grade for a lot of kids. And we're really missing a window of opportunity there by not doing any language instruction in elementary school. And I recognize that this is an expensive prospect. It requires hiring staff. It requires rejigging the school day to include this time in our schedule. But I feel like it's a worthwhile investment because language skills, along with research and writing, are skills that our kids can use in future careers, regardless of what path they take. And they're skills that make our kids good community members and good citizens. And as we become a more globalized world and more of our neighbors don't speak English as a first language, it's sort of incumbent on us to be good citizens of that global world and have at least a passing familiarity with other languages. And elementary school is the time to start.
Well, I will say, listening to you, I think that you're a questioner. I think that you question everything and then get the answers that you need, why we're doing the things that we're doing and why aren't we doing other things. And I think you bring that questioning, those questioning skills to the school board, and sometimes we need those questioners in the room. I would also say what I heard was a lot of collaboration, and you're going to collaborate with everyone. The loud voices, the soft voices, the taxpayers, the students, really all the constituencies. And that's really important. So before I let you go, I'm just curious, is there anything you'd like to tell us that maybe we wouldn't find if we looked you up at LinkedIn or on Facebook?
So I was thinking about this, and I think one of the things that some people know about me, certainly my friends know about me, and it's not a secret, but I'm really kind of proud of is my affinity for role-playing games, in particular Dungeons and Dragons. And it sounds weird and nerdy, and I admit it's nerdy. It's totally nerdy. But here's my thing. I think role-playing games are a tremendous way to teach social skills to adults, to kids, to everybody. I've played Dungeons and Dragons since I was in high school. And early on in lockdown in 2020, I started running a game for my son and his friends. And it's been just fascinating watching them take a challenge and break it apart into pieces and work together to accomplish a goal. And they're good at assessing everybody's skills and weaknesses. Like, oh, you're really good at this. You should do that. You're really good with magic. You should use that. And they don't need a whole lot of intervention from an adult other than to just keep them on task, because they get to know each other and they get to work in a group in a really natural way that encourages them to see each other as individuals and to celebrate those differences, that we don't all come in, ready to kill that ogre. Maybe some of us are good at negotiating, and that's a huge skill. And I really love role-playing games because of that, and I think that, honestly, it's a thing that I kind of wish we would take into the classroom sometimes. It doesn't have to specifically be Dungeons & Dragons, but the idea of being given a scenario where you have to work with other people and assess who's good at what and how are we going to accomplish this goal is really good for kids.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. It's very funny. You mentioned executive functioning, and you mentioned role playing. And so I am actually the study skills teacher where I work, as well as doing role playing scenarios for social skills. So I feel like we're kismet.
I think definitely.
But I want to thank you so much for spending time with us, and good luck with your candidacy.
Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful evening talking to you.